Welcome back to Rooted in the Middle, where I talk about real life, real work, and real faith, and how I stay rooted through it all. I'm Becca, and today I'm going to be talking about the mental load that no one talks about, but we all probably have. Everybody has a mental load. Everybody has things that they have in the back of their mind that they've always got to track, do, whatever else. But a lot of times we forget that piles up very, very fast. There's the planning, there's prepping, there's mapping things out, and there's forecasting different things. We all know that it's a problem when we start getting overwhelmed. We talk about how the mental load is a problem, but do we ever really talk about, just talk about the load? We all say we have one. We all say we're overwhelmed. We all say we have all these things. And in general, when you're talking to somebody about it, a lot of times you're just calling it that. It's like, my mental load's just too much right now. But I want to really talk and dive into all the different, well, at least all the different aspects that I've been experiencing recently. Just to make sure you're not alone. Maybe you're going through similar things. Maybe you're having to maintain and track all kinds of different things like I am. And like almost everybody is. So your mental load might consist of to-do lists for your job, to-do lists for your home, for your kids, for your future. We're getting ready to go on vacation. So I've got all kinds of to-do lists, prepping for the person who's gonna be taking care of our dog, packing, groceries. What do I need to buy before vacation that's not gonna spoil while we're gone, or that's not gonna go to waste? So, but we don't want to buy too much because then it's just all going to go to waste if we don't use it before we go. There's a lot. Your mental load might look like relationships. It could be caring for illness, people that have illness, your own, a child, a parent, even just a friend who relies on you for help. Your mental load could look like a lot of different things, but I want to talk a little bit more about my mental load. And maybe you're going through some of the same things. Maybe you have gone, or maybe, you've got things coming up and you're about to experience some of this. Like right now, I have a brand new full-time job that started at the beginning of the year. And there's a lot to keep track of. As you know, when you start a new job, you are overloaded with information. And it's hard to keep it straight. It's hard to, dedicate things to memory to be able to recall them super fast. But you've got to have it. So you've got, I've got all this information located here that I can call upon. I've got this information here, just all these different mental checklists and to-dos. And, I create every month, like a monthly checklist to go through things, because otherwise I'm terrified that I'm going to forget it. It's just how I operate most efficiently. That's how I'm as productive as I can be, because I've got a system that works. Other things for us right now is we've got house projects. We just finished up redoing some of the landscaping and steps that come up to our back porch, which I kind of threw on us like right at the beginning of spring as we're going to do this. It's been years in the making. We need to get it done. And we finally just finished the very last step this last weekend. We finished staining the steps and got them all put together, and it's beautiful and lovely. But even then, like, that part's done, all the hard work is done. It's like, okay, I might need one more bag of mulch where some of it's thinned out, or I might need to clean up all of any remnant tools or any landscaping things that we didn't end up using. There's just, again, it feels like it just never ends. We've got our daily household chores, dinner, which is my least favorite thing to plan. I like having a home cooked meal, but I hate planning it. And I feel like it would be as simple as, and I create even a menu that forecasts out several weeks. Like, okay, this is our menu for the month, so I know what groceries to buy. And even with that plan, it's like, just the mental load of doing it. I got to remember to set out the meat, or make sure that the big pot is clean, or whatever the case may be, and I'm trying also right now to be mindful in how I'm taking care of the home and being a good steward over our things, over our over our resources, over the house in general. But all of it is also requiring me to change my attitude about it. I'm trying not to grumble so much when I'm thinking about dinner. I still ask for help with dinner. I still, I'm still a human being, and I'm not perfect. I will never be perfect, but I'm trying to at least be more mindful in in the in the prepping and planning for things surrounding our home. But also, we're navigating new terrain in regards to ministry and church. So we recently, we really felt like the Lord was calling us to take a step of faith for our household. A lot of things had just been happening that we knew without a shadow of doubt. We had multiple instances of confirmation that God was asking us to take a step of faith without having step number 2. And that's been very, very, very trying. We've been in ministry, in church leadership for most of our adult life. I've always gone to church my entire life. I've always been involved in church in one way, shape, or form. When we first got married was about the last time that we weren't over something or in charge of something. So we're back to that right now because we're kind of in a season of transition. And we feel like our season of transition has been more focused on rest and pulling our focus back to our household, back to our family. There's, again, a lot of instances, I won't go on here just yet, but we know, and since we took that first step, things have kind of started falling into place. Things have started relaxing. There's been a major shift in our children. But still, just, navigating the new terrain is scary. So in your mind, the mental load that accompanies that is, okay, I've got to make sure, am I doing too much now? Do I need to start? I'm trying to figure out, is God telling me to do this? What's the next step for us? I need to make sure we're getting involved somehow, or at least being, a regular attender somewhere. We feel like we've about found our resting spot, but it's still the mental load that accompanies that is like 15-fold, especially when you've been in church leadership. You've got a lot of dynamics that are at play, and you've got a lot of things to navigate there. So mental load comes in many ways, shapes, and forms. And for everybody, it's going to be different. That's ours right now because we just made that big step. Your mental load might look completely different. Maybe you're settled in ministry. Maybe you're settled into your new job. Maybe you've already got a good routine for who's making dinner when, and you don't have to freak out at 4:30 because you forgot to set out the chicken. So I'm not, it's important that I feel like it's important that we talk about the mental load and what the mental load is, because otherwise we start bottling it up. And I'm not trying to come across as, I'm complaining about the things that I have to track or that I have to keep in mind or that I have to be mindful of. It's important to note that there's a difference in complaining about your mental load and acknowledging your mental load and what it is. There's nothing wrong with pointing out that you have a mental load. There's nothing wrong with pointing out the things in your mental load that you have. There's, a lot of times we feel like we can't talk about it. We can't talk about everything going on. It's the elephant in the room. Everybody's overwhelmed, but if we talk about why, it's going to cause a problem. Sometimes there's guilt in expressing why we're overwhelmed or why we feel overloaded. Maybe we feel guilty because we feel like everybody else is carrying a mental load. Why should I be any different? Or, I don't want to come across as nagging when I'm asking for help doing things, or when I want to talk about it. I don't want to, even when you've agreed to taking on things and tasks and to-dos, or like with us, we've obeyed the Lord and we followed him and took a step of faith, and there's a mental load that comes with that. There's a lot that comes with that. And, even though you agreed to things, sometimes you might feel guilty. Well, I agreed to this and now I feel like it's too much, or now I feel like I'm overloaded here. And, I want to kind of just reinforce to you that acknowledging what your mental load is not the problem. When you just become bitter, that's when it starts turning into complaining. And you want to really be careful and guard your heart against, especially talking about it with people who are just going to feed into that bitterness, as in, becoming resentful towards the things that you're supposed to be taking care of. You don't want to get there. But there's just a difference between complaining about your mental load and acknowledging that you have one. One thing that weighs heavy on my mind, and I think I get my most overwhelmed or overstimulated when there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. And maybe it's not even all at once, but maybe I've just thought all day long, or maybe I've made decision after decision after decision. And then someone at the end of the day is like, hey, what are we eating? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what we're eating for dinner, because I would almost tell someone what they want. I would rather someone tell me what they want as a 7-course meal than me have to decide what I'm going to cook. It's decision fatigue. You get tired, especially when you're a mom, of feeling like you have to make the decisions for you and for everybody else in your household, especially your children. You're a lot of times, and maybe you have someone, maybe your husband or wife is sharing the load equally, and that's great. I pray that is the situation. It's usually the situation here. I don't have a whole lot of issues with this. I feel overwhelmed every now and then, but I think that's a lot of times I just get in my head about it. But with the kids, what to wear, when are they going to wear it? When does it need to be cleaned by? Does it need to be washed now, or can I wait? If I wash it now, it's 8 o'clock at night. Am I going to be awake in time to stick it in the dryer? Just things that you don't think about as being decisions, but they are. And then you've got meals. Okay, we've got our lunch menus, which it's summertime now. Thank the Lord we don't have to deal with this right now. Okay, here's the lunch menu. Who's packing? Who's buying? Who's going to just figure it out as they go, which is usually our oldest. He usually never packs, and he usually just figures it out. Our second child, he packs every single day. I'm sorry. My oldest one always is a tray. Our second child always is a pack, and he eats the same thing. He is a creature of habit. So there's no surprises there, thankfully. Cora, our youngest, she wants to know what's on the menu. She wants to make an informed decision. And she wants to plan ahead. What am I going to have? Oh, I'm going to pack tomorrow. Can I have ravioli, please? So it's like, okay, if I'm going to do ravioli, I've got to get the thermos out. We put hot water in it from the coffee maker to let the container warm up, and then we heat up the ravioli, and we dump out the water that's warming up the container. We put that in. It's like just step after step after step. That's decision after decision. Could I have just thrown it in there and been fine? Sure, but then it would have been disgusting, and she wouldn't have enjoyed it. She wouldn't have ate. So again, that's the mind of a mom. You just step after step after step is a decision that you've got to make. And even these little micro decisions that aren't, stop and think about it things, you still get tired because you're still making the choice. So, that was more on meals than I ever intended to talk about. But then you've also got plans. Who's making the plans, who's got plans, who has canceled plans, and then what are you going to do instead of the canceled plans? What about what's coming up in the future? Decision fatigue is real. Decision fatigue, it just wears you out. And sometimes you just be careful, because one thing I have a tendency to do that, again, we all have faults, and I know mine. A lot of times I'll lose my cool, and I'm like, give me 5 minutes before you ask me another question. Give me some time before you make me answer this question. And there's a lot of times I'll say, if you make me answer this right now, the answer will be no. I don't care if it's a yes or no question. I don't care if it's a this or that. The answer is no. I'm not deciding it. So usually the kids are okay with that, and we figure it out. But, that's part of the mental load that everybody carries. And again, this is not solely for moms. This is not solely for wives. Everybody gets decision fatigue. And I want to make sure we're mindful and remember that it's not just us as women. The men also have these same concerns, sometimes on a more profound level, I would think, because the decisions they make, sometimes they feel that extra pressure as the head of the household. And okay, and not that women don't think about the household when they're making decisions, but from a man's perspective, especially from a biblical perspective, they're the head of the household. There could be sometimes more at stake. Are we talking about meals here? No, we're not talking about meals here. But when, sometimes their decisions might affect a lot more. Not that women aren't capable of making life-altering decisions. That's not where I'm going with this. I think those of you that know me know this. I'm not going there. I'm not going back to the 1950s here. But, there's so much that I could get into as far as decision fatigue, but it's real. It's a real thing. But I kind of want to shift, when I'm talking about sharing these things. And sometimes if you don't feel like you have someone to talk about it, like what I'm sharing all of this with you in hopes of helping you feel like, yes, I understand that. Yes, that resonates with me. I feel that same thing. A lot of times, because we just tend to carry things quietly. A lot of times we just don't, we just suck it up and this is what it is. I'm just going to get it done. And, unfortunately, when we do carry things like this, especially when it, emits as frustration, it can turn into resentment and it can turn into bottling things up. And then when you bottle things up, that's when you tend to explode at some point. There's so much that we carry in our mind, the tracking and the planning and the doing and the deciding, that a lot of it, if we just keep it to ourselves because everybody's doing it, let's move on. No one wants to hear about it. I don't want to bother anybody. Nobody wants to hear my song and dance or sad sob story about what I've got on my plate right now. And again, there's that whole aspect of, I'm going to not talk about this because this is what I prayed for. It's one of those, like, I've made my bed and I'm lying in it right now kind of things. I prayed for this and this is where I wanted to be, so I guess I can't complain now that I'm overwhelmed in it. It's not the case. In every season of life, and no matter, even if you're living in the blessings that you prayed for, however grand or small they are, your life is still going to happen. You're still a human being. You're still going to feel tired. You're still going to feel overwhelmed at times. And that's okay. It's going to happen. Just because God gives you the desires of your heart, it doesn't mean that you won't experience times of being tired or overwhelmed. We're all called to live the exact life that we were given. But that doesn't mean life doesn't happen to us sometimes. We feel overwhelmed with the work of the life that we're blessed with. Kind of to support that, we weren't made to carry everything on our own. Literally in Genesis chapter 2, where God is talking about the creation of man, and then he gets to where he's talking about the creation of woman, he calls her a helper suitable, meaning the man shouldn't be doing this all on his own, but neither should the woman. Don't get it twisted. When you have a helper, they're helping you. They're not taking everything over for you. The woman is not the powerhouse that keeps it all together, because then that sounds like a compliment, but what it ends up doing is putting pressure on the woman, like, oh, you just do all this so great, I'm just going to let you do it. That's not how it works, because you're giving her kind of a backhanded compliment and still piling on the work. And sometimes it can feel that way. Sometimes it can feel like, everybody thinks, and this isn't even just in your own home, this is your job. This could be in your ministry. It could be in whatever. You're just so good about it. I'm just going to let you do it. Great. Awesome. So now I'm just going to continue to allow myself to be overloaded. It's just a label with more pressure, basically, when you start complimenting people and giving them these awesome descriptive titles like powerhouse or, chaos coordinator, but you're just, kind of ignoring the fact that they're overwhelmed and they aren't supposed to do it on their own. So But we weren't made to carry, so that's literally, we weren't made to carry everything on our own, literally. We also weren't made to carry everything on our own spiritually. 1 Peter 5:7 reads, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. How many times have I fretted about something or overthought situations simply because I didn't bring them to Jesus? He tells us to take every thought captive and cast your cares or anxiety on him because he cares for you. How many times have I sat and fretted, I've got so much to do, I'm overwhelmed, let me make my lists so I can get it all organized and then I'll be able to handle it all. Instead of like, okay, God, I'm feeling overwhelmed, help me make a way, help make this less painful, help take care of some of these things. And he will, if you let him, if you turn these things over to God. Maybe some things on your to-do list all of a sudden won't need to be done. And I'm not talking house chores. House chores got to be done. It is what it is. But the other things, there are other things that maybe we just need to give to God and he'll take care of it. I've seen it happen. It has happened. So maybe we do talk about the mental load with those who are close to us, or our soul sisters, or our inner circle. But I want to challenge us to kind of adjust our approach. Don't complain about it. Talk about it. Again, you start complaining when you start feeling bitterness about everything that you have going on, and we don't like feeling bitter. Some people, you may think they thrive in being bitter, and they might really enjoy just feeling miserable because that's just how they always are. I can tell you they aren't. I can tell you they don't enjoy it. They've just not understood or known how to take those thoughts or feelings captive and lay them at the feet of Jesus. But talk with your inner circle. Get with your community, and talk about being overwhelmed. Talk about being tired. Offer each other advice. Lift each other up in prayer. Even if you're venting about things with your closest people, you need to do what the Bible says and hold each other accountable. Remind your sisters or your friends that might be complaining to you or venting to you. Point them back to the Lord and say, I hear you. I get it. And trust me, if you need to hear it from somebody, let me say it. I hear you and I get it. I promise you. I know it's life is overwhelming, especially when you're, again, managing what it feels like to be everything. But point them back to the Lord. Remind them of these things, casting their anxieties on the Lord, casting their cares on the Lord, taking all their thoughts captive, being good stewards. Just yesterday, we talk about talking with our friends and everything. Yesterday, I was talking about the power of actually fellowshipping with one another, and how we've become so out of touch with those around us. A lot of times our phones have really given us a crutch on not having to actually be with people because it puts us with one another virtually. But we lack that physical and in-person connection with people, and we start forgetting that we're more alike than we think, and that we're all going through similar things. Even if they look different, the feelings and the situations and the experiences, a lot of them aren't that different. And sometimes when you're not connected, it's easier to feel like you're alone in this. It's easier to feel like you're the only one, like you're only seeing the picture perfect of everybody else online. When you're not engaging with people in person, you're losing that sense of normalcy, that sense of, again, community, but of feeling like, okay, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm actually doing okay. I'm doing better than I think. We've forgotten that there's real power in connecting with people. I want to encourage you, connect with people again. Get back connected. How many times have you talked to somebody and you've told them something you're going through, and you might even feel shame about it. Maybe it's a feeling that you're having or a situation that's come up, and you just feel so ashamed about it. And then you talk to someone and they're like, I've gone through that exact same thing. And they share with you. And then you feel connected. You feel like, oh, they get it. They understand. They can pray for me from a position of knowing what the other side looks like, that I can get through this hard, difficult thing. You know, they've carried the mental load that I'm carrying, and they've gotten through it, and here's how they've gotten through it. They can offer me good life advice. They can offer prayer. They can offer community. They can offer help even sometimes. You know, there's a lot to be said for community. That was kind of my sidebar for the day. But I just want, again, like in every other episode, I'm here to encourage you. I'm here to help someone feel like they are not alone, and that maybe what I've gone through or what I'm going through maybe resonates with them. And the mental load, again, maybe we are talking about it, but we're not realizing how many people have the same mental load or the same feelings about their mental load. So go back through your Bible, read the verses that I've shared with you. I'll put them here for you also. Just get in your word, get in connection with friends, actual people in person, at least over the phone where you hear a real voice. FaceTime them if you need to. I FaceTimed a friend a few weeks ago, and it really kind of pulled me off the edge. That was helpful. So anyway, I just want you to be encouraged and hang in there. Everybody's got a mental load. That doesn't mean you can't talk about yours too. We can talk about our mental loads with everybody. So I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next week on Rooted in the Middle.